I've added some diagnostic output to the analyze results to better help understand what might be wrong with the drive. And I'm going to demonstrate and explain those results in this video. So I've already connected my project, source, destination, so I'm going to connect. First I'm going to do a smart check on this just to see what's wrong, and I just recently added these warnings for reallocated and current pending sectors if they're not zero. So you can see that there are 3,450 reallocated sectors and 563 pending sectors. That's based on the hex values from the raw data. So we know this drive has an issue. Let's see what happens. So I click Analyze. I remember this, the first time you click Analyze, it does a very short version of Analyze. The reason I have a short version of the Analyze is so it doesn't spend a lot of time working with the drive in case it's really messed up, so that if you choose not to work with it anymore, you're taking a minimal chance at causing further damage. Okay, so we can see the initial analyze did not find anything wrong. 100% good, no bads, no slows, and no firmware issues. I'm not going to get into this data down here as I discussed that in other videos. So let's go ahead and click Analyze again the second time, and it's going to do a longer run, and we'll see what those results are. So the second Analyze has finished. You can see it still says 100% good, no bad, no slow, no percentage chance of issues. That would indicate that this drive could potentially have a bad spot. Obviously, with the smart data, you would expect a bad spot. I can say that this drive does have a couple bad spots on it. One is bad enough that you have to have use soft resets or power cycle it because it will lock up. But other than that, it's like a 99.9% plus recovery drive. So now let's take a look at our second test subject. So already done all the normal stuff, so I'm going to connect. Let's look at smart. It says there are 2005 reallocated sectors. There's 0 pending, so I guess that's good in a way. So okay, let's do our first analyze run. Alright, the first short analyze says there are 1.5% bads, 3% slow, so there's an issue. It says there's a very low chance of a slow responding, but it's a 25% chance of a bad or weak head. So we're going to go ahead and do the second round of analyzing. So we can see from our second round of analyze, bad at about 3.5%, slow is now about 4%, a little over. Now our bad or weak head percentage has gone up to 84%. We can also see that all our bads were timeouts because I'm using direct AHCI, which means well, they timed out at 8 seconds because that's the settings I'm currently using. So this would be an indication of a drive that definitely has a bad or weak head. I can say that this drive does definitely have a weak head. So those results are accurate. So here's a look at our next candidate. We'll check smart results. And we can see 550 reallocated sectors, 963 pending. Definitely has an issue. Let's see what it is. Well, that was kind of short. What we ended up with, 100% good, 87% slow. It thinks that this is a slow responding firmware issue. It's over 100%, it's 175%. That's because it bases it on how many slow reads and also variance. It's got 2 factors. So let's do a second analyze and see what happens. So the second round of analyzing is finished, and we can see it says good 98%, bad almost 2%, Slow, 58%, means there's a lot of slow reads. So it thinks the slow responding issue puts it at 136%. Battery weak head at 9%. This drive actually does suffer from the Western Digital slow responding issue. It's very difficult to tell the difference between this and a battery weak head. So it's not an exact science. This is all based on numbers. That's why the percentages are kind of crazy. They say, oh, there's a 136% chance. How can you have more than a 100% chance? Well, it's based on a couple different variables, so that's why, in general, the rule is if the slow responding issue is below 50%, it's probably not likely or less likely. If it's between 50 and 100%, then it's possible, if not likely. And if it's over 100%, then it becomes very likely, if not almost certain. So let's look at our next candidate. Try to do smart. And it doesn't even give any warnings. Reallocated sector 0, reallocation events 0. Seems normal. Let's do an analyze. Alright, now you might see, notice the subboard at the bottom here in error. Good, 0%. Bad, 100%. It says that there's a 100% chance of a battery weak head, but it also says there's a 200% chance of a partial excess issue. That number is multiplied by the fact that it read super fast and didn't read any and got errors, so there was no wait time on the errors. The errors were returned immediately. Unfortunately, I don't have a drive that actually has a true partial access issue, but this drive has a full access issue, meaning that no user data is being returned at all across the whole entire drive. There's no reason to even do a second analyze. This drive used to just have some bad sectors, and then one day it just decided to die. Basically, I think something happened, one head died, and it's affecting the translator. Anyway, point is, this drive, from this results right here, cannot be recovered by the average user, would absolutely need to go to a professional data recovery person or company that had clean room access and tools to work with firmware, because the drive just doesn't read anymore. I want to say that the partial, if you see any percentage in the partial access issue, it's a fair chance that there is some sort of partial access issue. Normally it should be 0%. Even though it can be inflated like you see at 200%, just seeing a number at all is an indication that maybe there's something somewhere that just completely is not reading at all on the drive. So let's take a look at our next test subject. Connect, check smart. This is warning 1365 reallocated sectors. Well, so we know there's an issue. Let's see what the analyze shows us. Okay, this says 97%, 97.5% almost good, 2.5% bad, a small amount of slows, and it says 87.5% chance of a bad or weak head. So let's do a second analyze and see what it shows. Well, we can see the second analyze results still say there is a very high probability of a bad or weak head, and there is. This drive does have a weak head, bad head. It reads a lot of small sector errors throughout the whole drive. There are actually some sections where it actually reads halfway decent, which is why you only see a 71.8% chance, but it's definitely a weak head and would potentially take a long time to read with the high read times. So now here is our next candidate. We'll look at Smart, reallocated sectors 920, current pending sectors 34, so it's got issues, and analyze. So the initial results show that high percentage of good, small percentage of bad, 25% chance of bad or weak head. We need to do the second round of analyze to confirm those results. So you can see our second round of analyze results shows there's still a 28% chance of a bad or weak head. That would mean that about a quarter of the drive seems to have difficulty reading. The good news would be that if you look at the good percentage, it's way up there, 99.65, and there's not a lot of there's not a lot of slows. That would be the other thing you would look at, other than the bad percentage is the opposite of the good. But if there's not a lot of bad, not a lot of slow, and you have a high percentage of a bad or weak head, still probably going to be a decent recovery. That does mean, though, that the issue, if you look down here, you can see it does span across the drive a little bit. There's more at the very, very beginning, and then a spot in the middle. There's kind of a couple bad spots on this drive. It is a 99% plus recovery drive. 99.99 probably or something. I can't remember. I did it before. This does give you an indication, that it spans a little bit. The issue spans across the drive. It's not just one small bad spot. So this would be a drive you'd want to be careful with because it's in a bad condition and the heads could die at any time. So you want to clone it as soon as possible. If not, do data extraction. So I would like to show how you can make the analyzed results a little bit more sensitive depending on what you want. You can do that in the clone settings. Normally the cluster size is 128, the skip threshold is 1000. If you increase the cluster size, then you increase the read size, the area that's red, which means it's more likely to be able to find a bad spot, or something bad in a weak head or a bad spot. And the skip threshold is the same thing, is right at 1 second. If it's not above 1 second, then it won't be counted as slow. If you drop that down to a lower number, then it will be counted as slow, so you can get a better idea of actual issues depending on how sensitive you want to make it. So in this demonstration, I have this one is at the normal 128 cluster size in 1 second timeout, and this one is, if we look at clone settings, I upped it to 512 and dropped this to 250, so a quarter second, and then I quadrupled our read size. And if we look at the results, compare them side by side, you can see that the percentage went up considerably from 2.7 to 9.3% for the bads, and there weren't any slows in this one. Now there's 3% slows. The other thing you might notice is the bad or weak head percentage dropped from 87 to 62, but part of that is because the read percentage dropped. The number of reads dropped because there were more read errors, so the number of reads dropped from 512 to 64 for this session. So now we'll take a look at what was the second round of analyze testing with each setting. And you can see the original setting, 97% good, 2% bad, very little slows, 62% bad or weak head. Here we only have an 89% good, 10% bad now, and a 1.6% slow, and an 87.5% bad or weak head. This gives you more of an indication that this drive might take a little bit longer to recover, and reality is this drive is in the several day category for cloning. So that gives you an idea of how you can tweak the settings to make it more sensitive. You just might want to remember that if you do change your settings just for the analyze feature, if you're using the same progress log file for the rest of the recovery and you choose to clone, you may want to change your settings back or alter them depending on what you've done or what you want.